everyone. Welcome to the Hey CTO podcast. I'm Pedro Torres.
And I'm Sara Gonçalves.
And this is a space where you can get to know a little bit better the members of the CTO Portugal community. Today, our guest is José Caldeira, or should I say Zé. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. It's a real pleasure to have you here today on our podcast.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for having me here on this amazing project you're trying to put together.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Zé, tell us, and I'm going to call you Zé, because, José and Zé, it's pretty much like the short name. I'm pretty sure that you're also very used to be called José, for sure, because of all the international scene. But, could you tell us a little bit like who you are and kind of, pretty much a little bit more about your context so that everyone that is listening to this episode knows a little bit more about you?
Yeah, sure. And actually, most of the people call me Caldeira right now.
Nice. Okay.
At OutSystems. So I'm kind of a geeky guy that started probably as most of the audience as a developer way before even going to the university. Moved from there as the kind of guy that wanted to develop RPG games and other kind of games. Went to Technico, studied distributed systems, fell in love with complexity. And then I was planning on moving outside of Portugal to learn more about product organizations and then came back way later on my life as actually opening my own organization. And what happened was that I met on my final year an organization called OutSystems, where I was then invited to stay as a software engineer. So from there, it was kind of a project that I believed it will be like, 2 years, I'll move outside of Portugal, and 15 years later, I'm at OutSystems as a VP of engineering. Throughout that stage, basically, I've fulfilled multiple roles as developer, quality engineer, the guy that assembles tables on the startup. So everything that you need to do until you get to kind of a massive, not a massive, but a very large organization for the Portuguese standards. Other than that, I'm also an Aikido teacher, so nothing connected with technology. So I train martial arts since the university, and I give both classes and train on martial arts. So kind of the geeky guy that moved to management, that at the same time is a geeky on martial arts and other stuff.
Wow, that's quite different.
That's a nice
to say the least. No, for sure. And so, definitely from what you just said, and although I think it's fair to say that at least so far you failed on your plans, to move abroad, right? Out of 15 years, you didn't do it, which, definitely it's a sign that there needs to be something in your current company that makes you so hooked, right? Because I'm going to let's be real. Definitely, I think that the software engineering market is super dynamic. It's super hot. I think that it has been like that at least in the last 10 years or so. And usually I could say what's the regular tenure of someone in this sort of industry? 2 years, maybe 4 years. If you're really lucky, 6. Let's go crazy, 80 years. In your case, we are talking about almost double. And so that's something that definitely it's fascinating, right? 15 years going strong. So what's the secret there? How come you're staying for so long in a company?
And actually that's very interesting, because when you look even to the leadership process, usually on leadership you tend to have even a smaller tenure. Because it's lots of pressure, lots of things happening, lots of new opportunities, and Portugal today is in a very interesting scene with new startups, new organizations that are appearing every day. So I think that the secret here, at least for me, has been two main things. One that is deeply connected with my values. So I really believe that you always need to keep improving and growing. And that the thing you take out of this life is the impact you had around you. And the OutSystems has always given that opportunity to everyone. At the broader scale, at the small scale, you are always challenged to kind of get out of your comfort zone, which is something that human beings are not very fond to. but that is the way you keep on growing. Pretty similar to.
I think we are
Yep.
losing you. Oh, you're back.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I was saying that the thing that has kept me here is the interest of always learn and always keep growing. Now systems always has challenged me and challenged everyone to stay a little bit out of their comfort zone, which is a little bit the hard part for human beings, but the place where you can grow the most. The other one is the impact. So we started as a one of the first product companies in Portugal, which was why I was planning on going abroad, because there was no product companies in Portugal a long time ago, like 15 years ago. It was OutSystems, Farfetch was starting, you had Critical, you had one or two more product companies, right? And having this potential impact on the local community on Portugal and helping Portugal to get to a tech scene was something that was really, really important to me. So these two things together have always moved me in the company. Interesting enough, other people on completely different roles felt exactly the same. I have a friend of mine that started exactly on the same day, and today he's working as a principal AI engineer. I'm working as a VP of engineering, and both of us feel exactly the same thing of always being challenged.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see that we always have new opportunities coming up all the time, and it's always good to that makes us grow, and that we in the same place we can keep growing with those opportunities.
Yeah, and bringing other people.
Sorry,
bringing other people like you, Sarah. So Sarah, for instance, I was the one challenging Sarah to become a leader on OutSystems. She was really okay. Should I do it or not? But that
and
kind
it was scary. It was scary. but it was an amazing opportunity, and of course, again, it helped me grow a lot. But I'm curious about something here, because we are talking about 15 years ago already. And you already shared that you had ambitions to go out of Portugal. That didn't happen. So I'm curious if at the time, 15 years ago, if you ever imagined that you could reach to a position like a VP, if there was under your ambitions, it was something that you thought about?
No, actually, it was not, and I was never, and I'm still not moved by roles or anything. I'm moved by impact. I was finishing my high school, and I was like, I want to be a QA, and I want to go to technical to do this. Actually, at 8 years old, I told my mom I want to go to technical to learn about QA, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" Yes, I want to go there. It's the best university in Portugal for computer science. What are you talking about? Yeah, I have my cousin. He's learning this thing on computers, and I want to go on the same class. That makes no sense. You're going to be a guy on the management or kind of connected with the mathematics. And I'm like, no, this is what I want to be. When I got to OutSystems, my goal was I want to be the best professional I can be, and that for me was a technical role. It was kind of an architect, something like that. Actually, it was when I started giving Aikido classes, because I'm kind of an introvert. I had to challenge myself and start giving classes as I want to expose myself. That I started saying, hey, probably I should move to something different, and the company needed me to grab some more management roles, and I decided, let's give it a try. Again, it's going to my values, it's outside of my comfort zone. So I kind of was always following the flow of what the organization needs and what I had to do, plus my ambition on how can I have more impact. And it was more this value of how can I have more impact, how can I help the most, that drive my career to this point. It was not something like, I think we're cutting. No, I want to be this particular role or something. It was more, let's keep doing the things that will have the most impact in the organization, and kind of karma plays a place into the story and took me to this position, to this role.
And so tell me one thing, Caldeira. Definitely one thing that really kind of stands out from what you're saying, and definitely I really resonate a lot with that, is talking about getting a little bit out of your comfort zone. That's pretty much where kind of the magic happens. That's where definitely there is more opportunities for growth, right? Not to a point that obviously if it gets too far from your comfort zone, maybe you're into a panic zone, and that might be a little bit more kind of scary. And even it works actually on the opposite, but definitely on that sweet spot, I completely agree with you on that growth part. And so one thing that I usually believe that happens a lot in terms of being uncomfortable is that a lot of challenges appear, right? Because when we are comfortable, when we are on, let's call it the safe zone, the zone that we are not growing, everything is completely under control, right? And like, everything that is going to happen, like everything is pretty much predictable. And so it feels good as a human to be on that zone. But just like you're saying, as we start to get uncomfortable, the growth opportunities appear, the growth opportunities. And so my question to you is, you started as a trainee, you got like this road, this path to become a VP of engineering of God knows how many engineers, that kind of, rely on you to lead them. Do you have like an episode or like a moment that definitely was like the biggest challenge that you needed to overcome on this year? So something that really you thought to yourself like, whoa, if I could kind of, say one challenge, that was probably like the biggest one. And it could be, regarding any situation, or even because of the way that the company also evolves, right? Because let's face it, OutSystems really changed a lot throughout the journey of when it started now to the unicorn that we all know.
Yeah, there's one event that I recall perfectly. Probably Sarah will remember that also. That was when I moved. So I was a leader of a team. The team was, I was really proud of the team. I was completely not needed anymore on the team. So I was then invited to become the responsible for the whole engineering group at OutSystems, which means you move from you're managing a team directly to now you're managing a part of the organization, meaning multiple teams. At the same time, we're doing a huge reorg. We were creating multiple practices. So you had kind of the product ownership practices, the architecture practice. So we were moving very senior people into those positions. And then suddenly I got the whole development community within OutSystems, which was kind of ripped off of the more senior people, the more senior elements, the more senior team leaders. And I move into, now you're the manager of all these guys and girls. And now you're responsible for their success. And most of them are junior into their own position. Okay. And suddenly you become responsible for, I think it was 14 direct reports. 14 direct reports, multiple teams, the whole product, the whole OutSystems product, on the phase where we're starting to become close to $1 billion organization, meaning lots of pressure. And basically no management knowledge at all. You're just jumping. And it felt to me like, okay, I'm doing bungee jumping with 50 or 100 people on the same bungee with me. And if I jump and the rope is not well connected, all these guys are going with me. And that was a very, very challenging moment to me. I felt like quitting multiple times. Had very, very good conversations and strong conversations with the guys that were part of my support network, my peers at OutSystems. But it was really, really hard because I knew that some people were kind of waiting for me to fail because they didn't want me on this position. They were kind of jealous, others didn't believe on me.
Sure.
And it's very, very hard when you're doing this transition and you're coming from inside the organization. And you feel that pressure. You know that conversation is happening on the hallway. You don't know who to trust, but you need to trust on the team. You know that you're doing lots of mistakes because you don't have the knowledge nor the team to.
You're learning as you go, right?
Yeah. So that was probably the biggest challenge and the hardest challenge for me. And I also tried to bring something to the team that was, I want the team to be much more demanding with each other, which was something that even for them, it was kind of awkward. It was, this guy is probably asking too much at the same time.
And do you think that was probably your scariest moment in terms of career? Because, like you just said, you're learning as you go, like definitely a lot of pressure, right? And we know that, that pressure makes diamonds, but, maybe too much pressure won't help that much. And, and you're talking about doubting yourself, maybe even a bit of imposter syndrome. Was that probably like the scariest moment of your career or not really?
It was one of the most scariest moments of my career, but I think it was not the scariest. Probably the scariest was either when, and this one was when I was a team leader. I had the first woman that was pregnant. So it was very hard on her. She was going to be a mother for the first time. So it was like, okay, how can I help her? And then it's like, there's nothing you can help because it's kind of, today she's happy, tomorrow she's sad because of the hormones. So you really don't know how to act in those situations. And you're like trying to, and she was under a lot of stress due to the work and what was happening at the organization at the time. So trying to convey the normal one-on-ones with the additional understanding of what can be for that person, for that human being, to be a parent for the first time. Well, you don't even know what that is because I'm not a parent. So suddenly you don't even know because you don't have something similar to say, okay, I've passed through something similar, or my wife passed through something similar. It becomes kind of scary. And I think those kind of personal situations, no one prepares you for, because suddenly it's that.
Yeah. And you mentioned there in some point that on that big change that happened through that journey, that from one point to another you passed to lead 14 people and you felt a lot of pressure and more responsibilities, a lot of challenges. Would you say that the biggest challenges were about managing people or more about on the technical side, technical decisions and involving the product?
Completely managing people. Managing people and relationship and communications way harder, namely when you do this transition, because you suddenly, let's be honest, if you have a problem on the computer, you can kick the computer. If you have a problem with people, I do martial arts to kick people, not the people in the work, right? So that becomes very, very sometimes frustrating because you're trying to convey a message that is there to help someone, but then it's either you're not doing a good job, the person not trying to be comprehensive, the person not going with good intentions, you failing on the way you can convey the message, side conversations. So there's so many different things happening that you cannot control. That makes it very, very, very hard. And you're not prepared because all our, at least my background was all computer science, all technology, all geeky stuff. Then you become a developer, all development. Suddenly you become a team leader for a short period of time where you kind of think you manage something. And then suddenly, no, now you cannot control anything because you depend on everyone else to do the job.
Yeah. And when you look at that, for instance, from a developer for someone that manages a lot of teams, do you see any advantages or disadvantages for a developer that knows the product in a position that you are not in control of the stuff that is happening down there?
I think it has pros and cons. It depends a lot on the context and the culture of the organization. It has the pros that you can mentor and help people. You can be very, very crisp on, hey, probably you should do this, or you can ask leading questions that can help the person to think on a certain way. It has the cons that suddenly, as you know the product pretty well, you're always conveying something that you'll design yourself. So it's harder for you on that transition to step out and say, hey, what would I do if I didn't know anything about this? How will I rely on the person that knows more about this, that is the person that is working with me, to take the decisions that then I'm going to be responsible for? So that part is kind of tricky. At least for me, it's the trickiest part. And it was, I used to go a little bit on too much on details because, hey, I knew I will be able to probably get to some of the decisions and solutions way faster than anyone else on the team. But I was failing as a leader.
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. I see your point. So tell us one thing. The one thing that you mentioned when you had pretty much your trajectory from from trainee to your current role, you said obviously, right, that obviously you had people looking at you and say, oh, why it's not me, and it's why it's Caldeira that that it's kind of that it's succeeding, and let's face it, although some people have ambitions to become a VP, sometimes can be an architect, or maybe even some some other role. Definitely, I'm pretty sure that some of the folks that when you joined, and you just mentioned the principal in AI, they are still in the company, right? And so I think that I'm curious to know, like, do you still have a lot of people, that were with you back in the day? How do you look to your ex teammates? You were already a software engineer, let's say 12 or 13 years ago, I don't know. So, do you still keep in touch with them? Are you still one of the guys, or now you're kind of the boss? And so definitely, it's like now everyone else and Caldeira, because Caldeira now it's kind of, it's managing us. And so definitely there is some dynamic changes.
Yeah. So I think that's a very interesting question, and I'll get back to you, Sarah, on this question probably, because probably you can give your own opinion. The advantage of having someone here is that I think it changed a bit throughout the time. So I try to create a very open relationship with everyone. So again, I don't go by titles. So most people think of me or tend to think of me as someone part of the team. Most of them are still at OutSystems. So all the people that were my peers, they are friends and they are co-workers. Some report to me, others don't report to me. Others, I had people that were my managers that then started reporting to me through this position. So actually, I was always, or I think hopefully Sarah can convey a yes or no to this, to keep a very open kind of office mentality where people can come to me and think of me as part of the team. Usually they thought more of me as the leader or the manager whenever there was a crisis and someone needed to take the shot, and no one wants to take the shot in those situations. So everyone immediately conveyed to me. And whenever there were kind of those hard conversations about raises, promotions, etc., those times were when people were always about it, or when they wanted to complain about the organization, something, hey, this is not working, and it's management's fault. Actually, I still remember having conversations like, hey, it's management's fault, and I'm like looking and, but wait, I'm part of management. But you're different. What do you mean by that? Okay. Yeah. Are feeling a little bit better. Again, that's good. As you keep entering on an hyperscale kind of motion, that creates kind of a weird position for you to be, because you have people that treat you as a VP, they don't know you, and others that treat you like this. So suddenly you have people that you go and say, hey, how's this bug? What's happening with this customer? And he just gives you a summary of what's happening, and you move along. For instance, when we were at the office, this happened to me. I moved along, and then like 2 hours later, his team leader comes to me and says, hey, you cannot go to that person and ask that. And I'm like, what have I done? You cannot go and put that pressure on him. What pressure did I put? I just wanted to ask if what's happening with the customer, have a status, and see if I can help somehow. Because probably I can accelerate that either by bringing people or by bringing my knowledge into the table. Oh yeah, but he doesn't know you as I do, so he was completely scared that I don't have an update for Caldeira for the last 2 hours, and I'm like, okay. So it's kind of a tricky situation. I still believe I'm part of the team. Sarah, I don't know if you want to comment on that one, and I'll put you on the spotlight now.
You shouldn't. You
No,
shouldn't. Not
I
without your lawyer.
I completely I cannot relate, because I'm on that part that I already know you, and I know that you always try to create a transparent environment, and everyone can, like with equals, of course being aware that everyone has their own responsibilities, but I can understand the people that are new in the organization, that they watch the world and they see what a VP it's like, and they probably create that image. So I can understand that come on, the VP's talking with me through Slack directly. Oh my God. But I think they also, I already saw newcomers on my team feeling like that when they understand that we have that culture of transparency and being equals, it feels good because it feels that we are accessible and we can communicate with everyone independently on the role, and it's good to have, in my opinion.
Very well answered, by the way.
And
super cool.
the next one.
Go. I was asking Pedro. Probably you try to kind of have the same feeling around you on the places you're working, right?
No, indeed, for sure, definitely. I really try to have a huge proximity with everyone, and I think that we as managers, and it can be managers of managers, as leaders, definitely, I think that we have at least two very useful tools to make sure that people can see you as the human being that you are, right? And definitely, we already mentioned that, so the one-to-ones, and and making sure that it's not just about team meetings, but actually kind of finding time throughout our busy week to actually, kind of to grab a chair or to grab a Zoom session and actually kind of, talk and understand a little bit better the person, the challenges, the ambitions, and by the way, also projects and statuses and so on, but definitely never ignoring or neglecting the person and the ambitions and the sort of growth that the person wants to achieve. But the other thing that I really love is the skip the level meetings. And so, besides me working with my managers, I really like to just sit down with the engineers. And, to your point, maybe some of them find it a little bit more awkward, because, hey, oh, Jesus, I'm talking with Torres and, oh my God, he's director. And I couldn't care less, right? Like I'm just another person in the company. Maybe the company has different expectations from me than an engineer. Not that it's, better or worse, but they have different duties. But at the end of the day, we are all here for the customers and for the well-being of the company and everyone in the company. And so I see that those tools really kind of help you out to close the gap between us being kind of, the boss that is, wandering around, and actually, that person, almost, I wouldn't call it a friend, but definitely that person that you can rely on if something goes wrong, or even to share a win or a celebration, if you will. Yeah. So I see it like that.
To that point, I really think you nailed it on that thing of, it's the feeling of you are there for them. They can count on you when they need it, and whenever they don't need it, they know that they can just go to you, kind of as a peer, or as someone with more experience, or with someone with more context. Sometimes it's just a matter of context.
Yeah. So. No, absolutely. And sometimes even this idea of saying, hey, look, I actually have this problem. And, and sometimes it's actually kind of, almost acting like the doctor, the psychologist, and say, sure, let's talk. And, it can be personal, it can be professional, it can be, because of team dynamics or a team member, but also knowing that, besides the professional, there is also the person that can actually have also a different conversation. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
And we already talked about challenges, scary moments. What about the biggest lesson that you would say that you learned throughout the entire journey? If you had to choose one moment where you felt enlightened or where you felt you learned the most, what do you choose?
I think it was on that. I tend to see the biggest learning moments usually whenever there was a very hard or complex moment. So going back to the moment we were describing previously, I still remember one of the biggest learnings I had, which was connected with the transition from engineer to manager, or team leader to manager, and the power of the words you have, and the power of the words you convey to a level that you cannot even imagine. And going back to that example we were talking about, the bug that suddenly the person gets scared about. So on that transition, there was a situation where I was trying to make sure that the whole team leading systems become more demanding, and I'm like, hey, we need to take the principles to the next level, and we need to do this, and we need to do that, and pushing. And another day, I had a different conversation with someone that jumped to the team leading position also, like some months or weeks before on that progression. And I'm trying to convey a message on a one-on-one of, hey, one of our biggest responsibilities is providing feedback, and being very demanding on the feedback, and very, very transparent on the feedback. So if things are going well, let's be very candid and say that. If things are not going well, let's be very, very transparent and say things are not going well. Let's not go with a sugarcoating of, hey, this could be a little bit better. No, be very, very crisp. Probably I was kind of marked by the having to fire one of my friends early on my career. So he was my friend, and I had to fire him immediately when I started as a team leader. And that marked me to the point of the feedback being very, very important. And I was telling him, hey, you never want to pass through this experience. So I gave this thing of, we need to push principles, and I was using some names as an example. And the other day I was pushing this thing of, we need to be demanding because we don't want we want to make sure we don't fire people and we help them grow. So somehow this person connected, we want to fire our top engineer. And suddenly the gossip starts.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
So I got this because one of the guys that was still a team leader that went through this transition, he knew me very, very well. And he's like, hey, Caldeira, can I call you? Yes. He calls me and I was with a person A, and then suddenly he's telling me we're going to fire, and I'll make up the name now, we're going to fire John. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, he's telling me you want to fire John. He's like, Caldeira is crazy. I'm like, what's happening here? What's happening here? Only after like 1 or 2 days and talking with multiple folks, I was able to convey that these 2 messages on 2 different days to the same person just got to this kind of conclusion. And I always knew that there was a point in time where people will start seeing me as the peer or the manager or the team leader, and move to their manager. But I was never expecting the words to kind of having this kind of powerful meaning, even when you don't want to. So that was a huge learning. That was together with the bug that I was describing and others. That is, you cannot, although you're trying to be seen as a peer, there's always a time where people are going to look at you as the manager. The way you communicate needs to be super consistent, and you need to be very, very careful, because words will take more power than your actions probably sometimes, and than anything else. So that was a huge learning at the time. Which don't know if you remember, Sarah. At the time, I put one bullet point on, hey guys, this is the things I want to improve. And I had a poster behind me on the wall where I was seated saying, number 1, communication, and some examples. That resulted from this incident.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Communication is everything.
No, and to be honest, there were at least like 2 concepts that really kind of stood out. One definitely regarding feedback that you just mentioned, Caldeira, that I really like. There's an awesome book, but it's not about the book; it's about the content and the principles that's mentioned there. The radical candor. That it's great, because the truth is that and exactly like the sugarcoating won't help anyone at all, right? And might as well just give honest feedback. And it doesn't mean that you need to be blunt or you need to be a jerk, but be really, kind of straight to the point, and being really kind of, precise and giving examples of situations, but making sure that your feedback is really well sustained, well supported, so that people can really kind of, receive it and act upon it, right? Because feedback should be acted upon it. Otherwise, we are just criticizing people, and that doesn't make any good, right? And it's actually very funny that you're saying that, because one thing that I usually tell to the people that I work with is that there are 2 main axes that make great leaders. And so the one axis is standards. So having high standards, being demanding about quality of work, the way that we do things, and so on, but also our dedication to that person. And that's the second axis. And so if you dedicate yourself deeply to that person, growth and success, but you have high standards, that's where I see that it's the sweet spot of leadership, because you're actually making people better. If one really can't work without the other, right? Because if you have high expectations and demands, but you don't care deeply about people, you're a jerk. If you care deeply about people, but you don't expect more out of them, then you're just being, you're just being kind of, that family member that is kind of, oh, everything is well and good, don't worry about things, and you're just undermining their careers. And so that's why I really believe that these two axes, should go hand by hand, because that's where I see that the leadership works the best.
It's interesting that you said that, because that is one thing we try to use for leadership is exactly a kind of a matrix where you have skill set and behaviors, which connects deeply to that. The skill set is the standard, is what you can do as a technical, and there are guys that are amazing with the skill set, but then they can be jerks, as you were mentioning. And then you have the behaviors, that is this guy someone that really wants to do something? So we kind of try to connect or help people within these two axes, and use this as an opportunity either to promote, help people move forward, coach, or just go and say, hey, this person doesn't make sense at the organization anymore. So yeah, totally connect with that framework.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we covered this part of the lessons learned, because I think for everyone that is going to listen to these episodes, it's going to be 2 lessons that they will take from these as well, and reflect on top of it. And we are reaching the end of this conversation, which is really being. We are learning, at least me. I'm learning a lot here. But in every episode, we like to do 2 final questions, more personal, that I will choose to do the first one, and then I will leave the final one to Pedro. And the first one, being you, alentejano de gema, is in English, I don't know how to translate. Imagine that you organize a dinner. Who would be your guests? Who you would like to invite?
Okay, and I'm not strictly connected with only tech industry, right? I can pick anyone.
Go crazy,
anyone,
go big.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll invite my granddad again. So he's already passed away. He was the person that always pushed me to have this kind of mentality. So kind of all my family, of course, supported me and trusted me. But there was something different on him, and the way he always believed that I'll be able to achieve everything I put my mind into. So probably that will be the person I'd like to have that dinner with.
So it's kind of your source of inspiration, and the person that you kind of relate more.
He's my hero, basically.
Love it. Beautiful. Yeah. No, so glad we made the question. See, it worked. No, fantastic. No, I love the answer. Yeah. And so we have one final question for you, Caldeira. To end on a good note, so to speak. It was brought to our attention, or at least to mine, that you seem like you wear a t-shirt all year long. So pretty much, regardless of the day, regardless of the weather, if you're there, you're wearing a t-shirt. And actually, you're actually using a t-shirt right now, which is quite interesting, right? So definitely you're walking the talk. And so, I'm a curious guy for sure. And so here's a question for you. So let's imagine that you're getting invited at least, one more time for lead dev to give, an awesome talk, one that is kind of, the second, even improved version of the first talk that you delivered that was really interesting. And so, the issue here is that, this conference lead dev is actually going to happen in Moscow, and it will be winter there. So we are talking about more or less minus 10 degrees Celsius. Okay, I can't make the conversion right now to Fahrenheit, but at least it will be 10, degrees negative Celsius. Okay, so it's snowing. It's all you can imagine. So you're pretty much, kind of putting your stuff on your luggage and be ready to travel. the question to you is: are you just putting t-shirts, and pants, or are you actually taking a jacket and wear one while you're in Moscow?
So usually I take like a jacket. I love the winter because it's the time where I can use a thin jacket just to put everything on the pocket, so that I don't take them on my pants pockets. So I'll take it, but probably I'll leave it out. At least on the conference, I'll leave it out. And Moscow, it's probably that I'll start going out with a jacket and then leave it somewhere. So for instance, I went to Copenhagen. It was -2 Celsius, and I was on a t-shirt. And everyone on Denmark just looking at me and what's this guy? And I was just cycling with my jacket inside the bag of the bicycle. So they had those rent bicycles with a small front bag, and I had the jacket there, and I was just cycling through the city with a t-shirt.
Okay, wow. So you can -2, you can do it. So that's
-2. I already did it. So.
Exactly.
I don't know where it is.
Moscow -10, we are not sure. -2 in Copenhagen, your game. Okay, gotcha. No, absolutely. Look, thank you so much. Like super good fun. To be with you, Caldeira. And obviously I can't forget everyone that is listening to this episode. So thank you everyone for watching. It was a good fun episode. We hope you got some insights and definitely some inspiration from someone like Caldeira that that just made this amazing journey from a trainee to a VP of engineering, and God knows what's next for Caldeira for sure. Really hope to see you again on our next episode of Hey CTO. Take care.
Thank you.